Howdy. This is a quick little video about a four-wheeler that we have restored. It actually used to belong to my sugar mama when she was a little kid. This is a 1998 Kawasaki Prairie 4x4 automatic, and it's got the all-wheel drive, so it's 4x4 all the time. Solid rear axle, solid live axle, and the limited slip differential in the front, so those two fight over traction. And what is this? The caps, I believe, Harper. Out.
He just wants to be part of the video.
This KAPS, I believe that's the designation for the transmission. It's just a regular CVT. Let's see here. This was sitting for about between 6 and 8 years in a covered garage, so that was pretty cool. Luckily there was no mouse damage, although I think I saw them just starting to move in to that little apartment down there. But I did quite a bit to it. We have spent about $1,500 restoring this ATV. Again, 1998, and my brother-in-law, he beat the snot out of it. Heath, you did. Anywho, I want to show you a quick little walk around. About some of the things I did. Back here, pull this little loop, pops up the seat. First things first, we replaced the battery, which was completely shot. So that was about $100, and yeah, so that was good to go. Yeah, the old one actually held a little bit of juice. I was surprised, but new battery, good to go. In the airbox, we replaced that one, although I found out later on I could have just washed it. It was still in pretty good shape. So that, just a couple of screws down here, that pops off, and this little foam cylinder, take that off to clean that up, no problem. The carburetor was kind of shot though. It turned over just fine, but we knew that it was having some sort of fuel issues. Well, we find out later on, after we pulled the tank off, getting this plastic off is a hell of a lot of fun, I'll tell you. Plenty of screws to keep you busy, and I think we just ripped out a couple of them. But yep, pulled the tank, and we dropped that aside, and we found out that this fuel delivery assembly had to be replaced. There's a cylinder that goes up inside of the gas tank, and it's got a film cylinder going around it, and that was completely deteriorated. It wasn't even there. So this fuel delivery with the on-off valve had to be replaced. That was kind of expensive. I think that was like 80 bucks. But worth it, because it wouldn't have ran without it. Now the tank, that was where we found our big problem with it. The tank was full of so much sludge and nasty crap. It definitely, I don't know if I cleaned it out well enough as I did, but it's been running fine. I've been trail riding on it for a little bit now and haven't had any issues with fuel. We got a big 5-gallon bucket, poured all the old fuel out, put a little bit of new fuel in, and tons of carb cleaner, just shook it like crazy. Poured it out with all the other gunk that came with it. Did that a few times, and sure enough, it worked fine. So we got the tank cleaned out well enough, and then it was time to pull the carburetor. Now, I bought a carb rebuild kit, but I didn't end up having to use it because with a little bit of carb spray, we got it running just fine. It fired up real quick. What else? Let's see. Did an oil change, of course. The filter, you won't be able to see it because of these plastic covers, but the filter bolts on right on front here, right behind the radiator. Speaking of the radiator, we did a radiator flush. Make sure to use distilled water between the coolants. And this was the fun part. I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of dark, but the CV boots. This is the original one, and I think that might be the only original boot on this bike. We replaced this one because it was torn wide open, and then we had to take apart the center differential. You can't really see it, but where the drive shaft comes out of the front and the rear, there's two boots connecting it to the center diff, and we had to replace those. So we had to pull the front differential out, and oh, there's the oil filter. I don't know if you can see that with how dark it is. It says Kawasaki back there. That was fun to get to. I recommend trying it from the other side, or if you just have the right tools, that makes it easy. But yeah, so we replaced all these boots to the drive shafts, both from the center diff connecting to the front differential and one of the CV boots in the front. That one's bearings are also shot. And this was a fun task too. So in the theme of changing out all the fluids, we drained the rear differential, which came out like diarrhea, maybe from a sick black lab that you might have running around here who eats grass all the time. Yeah, well, we changed the diff fluid, good to go, but when I put the original bolt back on to close it off, I sheared it. So I had to wait 8 days for that to come into the mail. I think I paid shipping costs like 4 or 5 times as much as the stinking bolt did. Let's see, the tires were, as you could imagine, pretty much dry rotted. Each of them had maybe 4 or 5 plugs in them. They held air for maybe a day or two, so that was enough to allow us to work on it and test it out, whatever we had to do. But went and got some ITP mud lights. So far, I love them. This thing is insane. I don't have a ton of experience with different kinds of tires, but I know this blows away any stock tire. Next time I'm probably going to try something new if this thing survives till these are worn down. But so far I love the tires. I think they're great. The muffler and the spark arrestor and all that, I think this thing's got a spark arrestor. Yeah. They all work great. I just painted them a little bit of black. Of course, we gave it a bath. I have 2 pictures on my phone of what this thing looked like when we pulled it out of the barn, but they don't show much. I wish I would have taken more pictures. Let's see, what else? Painted the rims black. I had a buddy of mine put the tires on. He had to cut the stock tires off because they were so seized up to it. And what else? Electrical. The lights work great. That's really cool. I guess the final thing, we just picked it up today from the shop. The one thing I could not do. Oh, wait. I want to show you this. If you have to take this rear end off, unbolt the bottom of the shock here, and the 2 bolts to pull the rear end off, and careful of all your cables and stuff. Make sure to let these loose so you're not going to snap any cables. There's 2 bolts that hold that rear swing arm on, and it's going to be tough to see in there, but right here, I don't know if you can see that. I had to go to Home Depot and get some bigger sockets. I can't remember if it was a 33 or a 34 millimeter socket, but yeah, those are kind of a pain to get to, but you can get to them with a standard wrench, socket wrench. The last thing we had to do was brakes. When we took it out, we got it running, cruising up and down the street just fine, but over the course of about 3 or 4 test drives, maybe of 10 minutes apiece or so, the brakes slowly started to seize up. Well, we found out that the front brakes, they were getting oil, but this thing had been submerged in mud and water and stuff so much that they started to seize up. So there wasn't enough oil pressure to push the piston back once it was closed up. So it would ever so slowly. So if you let it sit there for a few hours, you could drive it around again for another 5 minutes until they seized up again. So I tried to bleed them. I failed. So we took it to a shop and they did it just fine. And the rear brake was also seized up. Let's see here. Yeah, that's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, the rear brake was seized up. We replaced both of these rear cables as well. So I'm about $1,500 into it, and I looked online, and these things in running and working order are going for about $2,300 to $2,800. So far we're ahead. Hopefully we get a few more years out of this thing. But yeah, 1998 Kawasaki Prairie, automatic 400, caps. What does it say here? Looking for the serial number. There's another, I think there's another 3-letter designation for the 4x4 version. But yeah, that's it. Cool bike, 400cc. It's a lot of fun, and I will hopefully make some more in-depth videos once things break and I get another chance to fix them.